Hey everyone, hopefully you can hear me and we'll be fully operational here in a few seconds. Oops. Once I get everything sorted. All right. Well, okay. Well, thank you guys for joining in. Obviously, I'm streaming live, but if you're watching this at a future date or time, um, welcome to the future. Or hello from the past, I guess is what I should be saying. So, uh, in this live stream, I will be unboxing my second edition here of Skull Tales Full Sail, published by Eclipse Editorial. And before I dig in too deep, I do want to take a few seconds to kind of provide a little context of this game for those of you new to Skull Tales, because this is, as mentioned on the box, a second edition, implying there obviously was a first edition. And once again, I'm clicking around here, but what I wanted to show you was the current Gamefound page for a couple expansions that will be coming out in addition to I think a print run of the second edition. However, it does look like on the Draco and Eclipse store page, you could purchase a copy of the second edition today. So I think the Gamefound campaign will be more about those expansions that are being released as well. But so definitely follow along on that Gamefound campaign if this game piques your interest. So with that said, a couple other things to note is just general general aspects of this game. This is a semi-cooperative board game for 1 to 5 players, obviously pirate themed. I would say kind of the golden age of piracy theme, where you're kind of traveling, I guess, around the Caribbean Sea. And this game, I would not say is necessarily historical in nature. It's obviously pirate themed, but there's not a lot of historical, relatively speaking, information in this game. It's meant more as a fun adventure game, dungeon crawler type game. And as you can kind of see, that alluded by the box cover art here, there is some magic and voodoo in the game. So there's a fantasy element as well. It's called 1 to 5. It's referenced as a semi-co-op game just because there are mechanics in the game that will allow you to try to take over being the captain of your crew. At the end of the day, from my perspective, it's still a cooperative game. But there also is the opportunity to play this completely solo, and it's not just that you're managing a bunch of characters if you play the game solo. The rules do provide for a more catered solo experience, so that's something that I, of course, want to mention as well. Other than that, what makes this game very unique is there's some will say there's 3 games in one. There's definitely 3 major phases of the game. The main phase, I would say, is the adventure phase, and that's when you're actually doing a traditional dungeon crawl experience across a map, exploring with your characters, trying to take out enemies, complete an objective, that sort of thing. But then there's a port phase, which is essentially kind of where you're going back to your base, your home island, and there is kind of a mini game surrounding that, because you have so much time to spend going through different locations on the island to try to buy equipment, earn skills, find new missions, that sort of thing. And then there's also what's called the voyage phase, and the voyage phase is where you're actually then maneuvering your ship around the, we'll say, Caribbean Sea. And that's definitely more of a robust experience in itself. You potentially are going to be fighting other pirates, pirate ships, and sea monsters, because again, there is this fantasy aspect to the game. So Yeah, what else? There was one more thing I wanted to mention before I actually start this unboxing, but it'll probably come to me as we progress. So, also, no hate in the comments if I don't fully understand something about the game. I haven't played it yet. This is an unboxing, so we're experiencing this for the first time. I did try to read through the rules to have a little bit of an understanding of what I'm getting myself into here, but yeah. So my last unboxing, people were frustrated with me not fully understanding what I was looking at, and I apologize, but like I'm doing this for the first time, so I'm learning as I go. One thing that is immediately being brought to my attention, or being brought back to my memory, is that in the original first edition, we'll say, of Skull Tales Full Sail, the game only had a single rule book for those 3 phases that I was just describing. To make learning the game a little easier, a little more digestible, this second edition comes with 3 separate rule books for each of those phases. So you have this adventure guide, which is kind of for, like I said, that traditional, more dungeon crawler type experience game. The port guide, which is the rules for that market phase of the game where you're going back to your base and buying equipment, talking to the local people. And then the voyage rules, which is the rules for the phase of the game where you're actually maneuvering your ship around the open sea. And I didn't, I think, specify this, but this is a campaign game, so therefore the game comes with a campaign book, which will have all these different, the different scenario setups for the different adventures that you'll be going through, and then also, or chapters, I should say, that you're going through, as well as different paragraphs you'll be reading. And I don't want this video to be turned into like an overview of the game. It's more just supposed to be an unboxing, so I'm already getting a little off track trying to explain the game as I go, but I do want to give a little bit of a background, since I don't think this game is very well known, which is why I wanted to do some content for it, because I really want this game to get out there. And that kind of brought me back to something that I wanted to mention at the top of this was, when I was a kid, one of my favorite PC games was called Sid Meier's Pirates, and that was a game where you managed a crew of pirates. You had your own little ship that you were upgrading as the game went on, with more cannons and trying to improve your crew. At times you could actually land yourself on an island and fight different enemies on that island. You're gaining loot, the traditional kind of pirate experience. And obviously, fast forward to today, I'm more into board gaming, so I've been always looking for that board game experience to kind of simulate that digital experience I had playing Sid Meier's Pirates. And it's been challenging to find a board game that really recreates that for me. But I think the closest thing I have found that does mimic that experience is Skull Tales Full Sail. And I see so many people asking, hey, recommendations for a pirate game. And this is definitely one that I want to make sure people have at the top of their mind, because it really does encompass the full pirate experience in my mind, that, again, made Sid Meier's Pirates such a great PC experience for me. So now to see that digital experience in an analog format is really exciting. So I do want to throw that out there as well. Now, with that said, let's take a quick look before I go any further at the adventure book, just to kind of get a better idea of what's included in this. So first, you have the adventure book kind of provides the full, I think, itinerary or list of the components in the game, and there is a good chunk of stuff. We'll obviously be going through it here shortly, but this is not a light game by any means. So the rules for just the adventure phase, or the dungeon crawler phase, I'm going to call it, is still 36 pages long. And then, there's a little bit of an annex or glossary here at the back. But the rules I will say, just for your own, so you don't have to, the rules I think are available online in PDF form, but they're not really overly complicated. They just, I think, are rather wordy at times. And so that kind of is what makes the rule book then a little lengthier than maybe it needed to be. But I don't think anything was missing in my first read through of the rules, which was nice to see. And then this, of course, is the second edition of the game. So I think they probably, I imagine, cleaned up the rules from the previous version. So for the most part, I thought everything was in at least the adventure phase rule book here, or the dungeon crawler book. And yeah, so that's the adventure book. And let's now take a look at the second, what's called the second book, which is the port guide. And here are the port guide, booklet. This is the one, or not, sorry, not I'm jumping ahead of myself. So port guide is where you're, this is the rules for when you're visiting your island of Tortuga, I think is the name of the actual island is your home pirate base. And there's all these different locations that you can interact with, and it's kind of a mini game because you only have so much time available when you are on the island to see the different locations. So you kind of have to prioritize with your character what you want to do, and then you have all these different skills you can learn, which cost money and resources. But this is where you kind of are able to take your character from a starting character with a couple basic abilities and really branch out into a lot of different to create the type of character you want to create. So a lot of replayability then out of the box for that reason alone, because you can kind of take different paths with how you progress your character. Next, or last, we have now the Voyage rulebook, and this is the rulebook for when you're out on sea. And I think the concept of conceptually, this is really cool that you're actually kind of managing your crew like down to the tactical level. You're not just moving your boat around, but you're actually managing a crew, and it becomes kind of an action selection type of game where you have your different crew members and characters, and you're putting them at different spots on your pirate ship, and depending where they're located on the pirate ship, that determines the types of actions they can take. So it's very thematic in that regard. I think that's really cool. And then you have cannons, and you need, of course, have people located at the cannons to shoot them. But you also need, of course, have someone at the helm to move your boat, and people at the rigging and sails to increase your speed. And then eventually you're going to get into boarding combat, where you're actually lining up your characters against the enemy, the enemies that are on the enemy ship that's trying to board you, or of course you could be trying to board an enemy ship. So that's also there's mechanics for that. So there's a lot going on in this voyage phase of the game. In the original first edition of Full Sail, there was a lot of criticism around the rules for this part of the game, and so definitely with this standalone rulebook for this phase of the game, I imagine the rules are a little more clear. I did read through them myself, and I have to say there were still a few things that I was kind of scratching my head about. So I wouldn't say this rulebook is perfect by any means, but I again want to reiterate that what it's trying to accomplish is something I've never seen in a pirate game before. This is something that reminds me of my time playing Sid Meier's Pirates, and so again, having a board game that lets me experience that type of experience from a computer game is awesome to see. So I'm really happy with what they're doing in this phase of the game, and letting players move around a map of the Caribbean Sea, you can explore islands too while you're on your boat. You can make pit stops if you want, and there's event cards that are going to be drawn to create surprises for you. So just a lot going on in this voyage phase of the game, and so that's exciting. And then the last kind of literature we have here is that campaign book. So the campaign book, I'm going to go through this quickly to avoid spoilers, but this is what's going to tell you how all the scenarios are supposed to be set up. Mostly the adventure scenarios, and the game is managed kind of by chapters, and in each chapter of the campaign, you may or may not be experiencing all three phases that the game has. So there's the adventure phase, the voyage phase, and the port phase, and each chapter will tell you which phase you're actually going to be, which of those phases are actually going to be conducted in that chapter of the campaign. So with that said, let's move over now to the actual unboxing part. At least start unboxing more of the actual components of the game. And first we have the token sheets. So this first one I'll put over to the side here. We have the various ship and sea tokens, sea monsters, tidal wave. These are all the tokens that will be showing up in that voyage phase. Then these are the different types of goods. So I didn't even really talk about that yet. Your ship, of course, has a, it can't be a pirate game without a cargo hold. So yes, there is like a cargo management system in this game too, and each of the different types of cargoes have different values to them. So I think that's really cool. Actually, blanking a little bit on. I think these might be doors for the adventure map. Different counters and to keep track of the various aspects of the game. This I think serves for the voyage phase to let you know how much time you have in the day. So let's move on to the next counter sheet. Here we have this is actually the used for the voyage phase of the game, kind of as a turn tracker. And then we have all the various character tokens that will show up to kind of help with keeping track of various aspects of the game. And then we have some gold tokens here. And these are let me show one of these. These are the crew tokens. So I thought this was a really novel idea. Obviously, when you have a pirate ship, my first thought was like, oh, you're only going to have like, when you're playing a game like this, especially solitaire, you're only going to have like a few characters, or the characters that you play with as a solo player are called allies. So they're not quite as effective as a human character, but nonetheless, you only are going to be playing with like 3 or 4 of these characters. So I was like, that seems kind of, how is a few characters going to run a whole ship? Well, then the game, when you're in that voyage phase, you actually also have these crew tokens to represent kind of the other riffraff that you have on your employed to your pirate ship that are able to do different tasks and stuff. So that's what these are. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of a cool idea, and very thematic in that, of course, you have more than just your handful of characters manning a whole entire pirate ship. So now let's look at these adventure tiles. So this is, if you're in the adventure mode, an example of one of the tiles that you'll be exploring. Very colorful and a lot of variety in the artwork. Then when we turn it over, we have one of the tiles used for the voyage phase. So this is, of course, the open waters that you'll be moving your pirate ship around. And each of these letters correspond to essentially a potential area of interest. You might be trying to, there might be objectives you're trying to accomplish at these, or just points of interest that will generate text dialogue, that sort of thing. So a few more of the different tiles that you'll be adventuring around, and the voyage on the back. The sea tiles obviously are much more simple. They're just islands and water for the most part. Nothing too exciting, but the land tiles, of course, have much more going on. All right, so now we have all the different minis. And I'll pull some of these out. I believe the white minis. The white minis are the bad guys, the enemies, and then you have the more tan-colored minis, which are the ones that represent your characters, the player characters. And I'm not, again, a miniature expert, so it's hard for me to say, what. I'm not going to judge the quality. I think they're sufficient enough in my mind. So I hate not being a mini expert, like I know some of you watching probably are. But they're minis, so a lot of different types of sculpts and a big decent number of them. And here we have like almost like a gorilla looking Sasquatch monster type dude. This guy just kind of looks like almost like an Aztec type warrior enemy. Then we have what I believe are called the Redcoats, so the British army essentially. And then, as mentioned, this has a little bit of a fantasy element to the game. So here we have some skeleton pirates, our enemies. So that's kind of cool. Looks like some sort of maybe officer. And and just complete variety of characters you can play as. Here's a guy with what looks like a giant blunderbuss bazooka thing. That's kind of cool. All of these characters have different playing styles. And then here, this looks like, of course, then of course there's a variety of monsters. So some sort of Hydra looking thing. This reminds me of one of those giant crabs from the Fallout game. I've been playing Fallout 4, and I forget the name of a Mirlac or something like that. But some giant looking lobster. I bet these would produce a nice lobster roll if you were able to cook one up. And then, yeah, I don't know. This looks like the face of Joe. God, the bad guy from Davy Jones, yeah, from Pirates of the Caribbean, kind of. So, yeah, so that's the minis. Let's now kind of go see what's next in the box. More token counter sheets. So over here, I know these are used to track various tracks on your pirate ship. This is to represent thrown weapons. So the game, like I said, this game is not a rules light game. So there's rules for when you throw a weapon, wherever you throw it to, it lands, so you can go pick it up. These are kind of like I wouldn't call them action tokens, but they kind of are action tokens. Basically, these are tokens that your characters will have access to help either boost an action or use for additional actions. Then you have wound tokens here. These are all the different more goods that you can have in your cargo hold. I believe these are probably stun status tokens. And something I haven't really mentioned yet is this game is very RPG influenced. Very RPG influenced. So characters, as we'll see, have not just strength, but also intelligence and I believe one other type of stat. And you'll be doing then checks against those stats. So there's the fact that there's so many actions that you can do compared to other types of dungeon crawler games, I think is inspired by, again, in an RPG, you generally have this huge menu of actions. So you need to understand that as well, because that kind of explains why this game does have some added complexity to it, because it's so RPG inspired, which I really appreciate, because I'm one that has never really gotten into RPG because I'm adverse to the notion of a GM, either me having to be the GM because it sounds like a lot of work, or of course then being in a game with a GM where I'm just questioning every single thing they're doing, wondering, well, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? So I just have never really gotten into RPG games, but I love the idea of what RPGs bring to a gaming experience. So a board game kind of inspired RPG inspired board game is something that's right up my alley, and that's definitely what you have here with Skull Tales. This one looks identical to the last counter sheet as far as I can tell. And then we have finally the port map. So to kind of explain, these are the different locations that you can move your character token around when you're on at port. You have this track around the edge, which represents the amount of time you have. So each character I think starts at 20, and depending on the action you're taking, you move your character down that many spots to represent the amount of time you've used. And by the time, once you get down to 1, you're done. So different activities at the various locations specified in the rulebook take a certain amount of time. And then just moving from a location to a location takes a time unit, which is what this icon's trying to represent with the dotted path. So like if you move from here over to here to the brewery or pub or whatever, that would take 1-2 time units. Anyway, a kind of cute little idea to, gamify the port phase of Skull Tales. Now on the back here, this is called the boarding board, and this is where you'll be lining up your characters essentially whenever you're being boarded by an enemy pirate ship. The enemies will be placed here, and then you are placing your characters and crew on these circle locations. And there's all sorts of things you can do in shenanigans. You can try to have your characters swing over to the enemy ship to do some hand-to-hand combat. You also have the ability to use these guns with your characters. You also then have your crew that are just kind of lined up here fighting back and forth and trading blows with the enemy pirates. So a really cool kind of mini game, I would almost say, in itself. All right, so let's look at the next board. And this is similar to the game clock that I was showing for the port phase, but this is for the adventure phase. So again, you kind of are keeping track of time while you're going through an adventure. So you can't just diddle dally while you're dungeon crawling. And then on the back here, this is represents your pirate ship in that port phase that I was talking about. So again, as I mentioned earlier, all different locations you can put your crew and your characters at to do different actions. Then this represents your cargo hold. Really cool, simple concept is the more the color change represents the speed of your boat. The more the difficulty of speed, I should say. So as you start filling up your cargo hold at 1, but as it increases, your boat gets slower and slower. So that's what the color kind of is representing. But also this represents your ship's hull. And you start over at 10, but as you take damage, your cargo hold spots start to be blown up. And eventually that cargo, you might start getting to the point where spaces that you actually have cargo are going to be getting damaged. And then, of course, you lose that whatever cargo is located in that spot. Anyway, so a lot of different flavorful thematic things going on here in the pirate ship board. All right, a few additional token. These represent, I believe, the different paragraph checks you'll make. So this, I think, represents a paragraph check you would be making in that campaign book. On the other side is just a blank scroll. So until you actually get to the scroll, that's the point at which you know what paragraph to look up in the campaign book. Moving on, let's take a look at the characters themselves. So just a second here as I struggle being a human with my hands. And this is that, I think, the blunderbuss guy that I assume, with the big beard. So here we have a guy named, his name, okay. So like I said, it's an RPG, so I believe the intent is to come up with names for the characters yourself. So the role or the type of character this is a gunner, and different. I believe these titles do correspond to skills. Don't quote me on that, but then these are actual skills too that they start with. So artillery, add 1 die to your swivel gun, mortar, or any gun deck rolls, including firepower rolls. So that kind of nautical symbol is stating that this skill is relevant for this character during that voyage phase. So basically this guy's not surprising based on the fact he looks like he's got like a grenade in his hand and a gun, of course. He's actually really good at using the different types of weapons on your pirate ship. But then on the land combat side, or the adventure phase, it says he has endurance, do not lose. That's an action. That stands for an action. An action. So do not lose an action when wounded. Typically, once a character gains just 1 wound, they immediately lose 1 of their action, which this guy starts with 6. So this endurance ability is really nice because now if he's wounded, he actually doesn't have to worry about losing 1 action, which 1 action can obviously be a big deal. The hearts represents his health. This represents those kind of special actions I talked about. The sword represents his melee combat ability. The gun here represents his weapon ranged combat ability. So he rolls 3 dice on melee attacks, 2 dice on ranged attacks, and then his strength, agility, intelligence, and perception are I guess the 4 traits in this game. And then down here is his starting item. So he starts with a blunderbuss, a grenade, and an axe. And just to clarify, these are the number of base dice they're rolling for a ranged or melee attack, but then their weapons that they're utilizing dictate the damage that the weapon will do when doing an attack. So that's kind of how combat works in a nutshell. And when you flip it over, this is actually what's called the ally side of the card. So every character has the player character side. So this is if you were actually playing as this character in a game of Skull Tales. And then the other side is the ally side. And allies can be recruited by, I think, any character, but definitely when you're playing the game Solitaire, you'll be using, I think, 3 allies. The ally side is very similar. The one change is that they don't actually have the action number that a normal character has. Instead, they have a speed value, and that then dictates how much they move. And they instead always just have 2 actions instead of the 6, but 1 action lets them move then more spaces. So it's kind of a way to, I think, decrease maybe the analysis paralysis of a ally character, but still allowing them to do most of the things a normal character can. And I think the abilities are slightly different. So here now the ally has Grenadier, which says once per adventure as an action, you can attack by using a grenade. Oh, and that's because one big difference actually is the fact they're not utilizing items. The allies don't actually utilize items so when you look at their combat statistics, they look different because they're not actually using a weapon, because that's an item, of course. Their combat resolution is more simplified. But like I said, I think that probably helps speed up the game, so you don't have all these allies taking up a ton of time. And there's a great variety again of characters here. So the Gunner, Sea Dog, Cutthroat, a Lookout, I think is what it says. Witch, again, fantasy characters too. A Surgeon, also could maybe double as an accountant during the day. A Cook. My dad's an accountant, so I had to make an accountant joke. Cabin Boy, Captain's Daughter. A Voodoo Shaman. What's this guy called? A Freedman. And Antonio Banderas Zorro guy called the Avenger. So, a lot of differences there. Now we look at the enemies. So, as mentioned, we have the red coat. Enemies, pretty straightforward. They also have similar skills that are utilized for different reasons. And I don't want to really spend too much time on, again, the rules of the game, so I just want to quick show you the different flavor of enemies that you can go up against in this game. And then we have a menu of all the different adventure phase actions to kind of illustrate what I said earlier. You really have a wide variety of things, and it gets pretty nuanced. So like when you're attacking, there's what's called you can attack like a regular attack, but then you also why am I struggling looking? Sorry guys, the rules talk about this. Well, I guess it's not really laid out how I would lay it out. But when you're attacking, it takes 2 actions, but when you attack again with the same weapon and same arm, it's called a consecutive attack. There's actually a penalty to -1 to all dice when making consecutive attacks, same hand. So it's actually incentivizing you in a sense to have a weapon on both hands. Although then there is a -1 die if you're using your weak hand. So you have to take that into account too. So there is a lot of like interesting rules to be aware of. And here we have the voyage phase summary. So I'm glad that they have these player aid cards. Then this is a summary of all the different actions you can take at all the different locations when you are handling the port phase. All right, so a lot that I went through there. Now, next, I won't go through all of these, but there's just a ton of additional smaller tiles for those, for the adventures, for the adventure phase, and these are all double-sided. So you can imagine the wide variety of different scenarios that come with that campaign book. And then here we have all the different, starting with some of the different cards in the game. I apologize for opening plastic cards or cards in plastic wrap live. It's not really one of my strengths. So these, I believe, are Voyage. I want to say these are our Voyage events that you'll be flipping over during the course of a game during the Voyage event phase. These might be like contracts or assignments, I believe, that you can take on. So there's and if you succeed, you of course get a bonus, and if you don't, usually you just lose fame points or something, so you don't want to ever fail if you can avoid it. I believe these are called rumors, which are also kind of assignments in a sense, but perform 4 successful. Yeah, if Jerome disapproves of you, discard. Yeah, talks about disproving. So locals can approve or disapprove of you in the town. So there's that kind of level of detail as well. Now this is a location card for, I think what I'm going to just say the marketplace. It's probably not the exact right term. But, when you go to a location, there's the standard, market square. So actually that was that symbol. So when you go to a location, there's these actions you can do. But before you even get to choose from one of these actions, you have to draw a card for that location to see what kind of event might happen, just to add that extra element of story. And again, I want to mention or reiterate that this is heavily RPG inspired, meaning story is a big part of the game. And you need to I feel like it's important someone that's playing this game appreciates that fact, because having all the story element can potentially, slow up the experience of the game to an extent. But again, that's with an RPG type game, that's half the game is the story. So that's why I really want to emphasize this is a RPG inspired board game, and that's why there's a lot of the elements of this game that I think are derived from that. A bunch more, I believe, of the Voyage phase event cards that you'll be drawing, and again, a huge variety of things that could occur. Like this one says wrong charts. After taking a careful look at this region's nautical charts, you find out that they have several errors and you may actually be way off course. You roll a d6 and move your ship 3 spaces away from the current space in that direction. If there's someone at the forecastle, they may attempt a intelligence check to ignore the event. So that one probably not as bad as a lot of the other potential port phase event cards. And I'm sure some are fortuitous, and some are more ghastly. So thus is the nature of being a pirate. All right, so now we have some of these mini cards that I want to show you some examples of. If I can properly open the take off the plastic on this thing. Okay, so we have so these I believe are character specific items. Just looking at the fact that they have a image of the character on the card. So this I'm blanking on the name of this specific character, but definitely more of a character with kind of a druid voodoo-y looking theme to them, aesthetic. So they have like a totem, which looks like it can be used as a... Oh, these are spells, sorry. So the number in the upper left, these are types of spells, I believe, that you can acquire. So Eagle's Flight is a spell that for 1 action point, you can jump without a agility roll. So there are times in this game where you'll be trying to jump across a chasm, and you don't want to fail these agility rolls, because if you do, then you, I think, just end up falling flat on your face and basically losing out on a turn. But with this spell, you can fly. So that's obviously kind of thematic and cool. Snake Totem allows you to disengage without having to roll, which is helpful. And that's obviously, I think, a big RPG inspiration to getting into Baldur's Gate 3. You can't just move away from an enemy that you're next to without, taking damage. So just to that kind of theme in this game, you can't do. It's the same thing. You can't just move away from an enemy you're adjacent to. This says Shed Skin. You can discard 1 damage. So basically, like a healing spell for 3 action points. The Wolf Hunt, double your actions this turn. Wow, that seems pretty powerful. So anyway, those are just some of the spells. Looks like, and then this voodoo guy has his own spells. The spell thing's kind of cool to me, and I believe the upper left number is the cooldown of the spell. So you can't just do the same spell over and over and over again. You actually have to wait that many turns before you can use the spell again, which I think is a great mechanic to kind of balance spells out. Let's see, we have these red cards with claws on them. These might be event cards that you deal with when you're doing the adventure phase. I'm going to do a look-see-up-see on these ones because I want to make sure I'm describing them. So these are adventure events. I was right. So these are probably more likely than not bad things that you'll be dealing with when you're on a land or dungeon crawling mission. So for example, Ambush 1, the pirate with the most, I want to say that Fimble's like fame, is ambushed by a stray enemy. Place the enemy adjacent to them wherever you want. It immediately attacks the character. So yeah, obviously that's no fun. And then we have search cards. So one thing you can do in the game is just a search action. That just reminds me of Zombicide, but I'm sure other games use search as an action too. But you just search as an action, you search, and then you get to draw from the draw card and hope for something good. Some things I think you find could be bad, but nonetheless, that's an action you can do to try and find different things. So that was that stack of mini cards. Let me open up the next one that I have here. And once again, let's see if I have improved that's what I want. That's the kind of spell I want. The spell that I can just immediately remove the plastic off a bunch of cards wrapped in plastic. So immediately I'm seeing additional search cards right off the top. Next we have, what are these called? These are called gear cards. So these are more or less the items that you'll be able to purchase at the island during the port phase. You can see the gold value that they cost in the upper left there. Pistol. I'm sure someone will be having a pistol on your team. So a bunch of different gear cards. All sorts of weapons there. Maybe I'll show you a few more, just get you guys interested. And some of these are specific to characters, which are represented then by the icon of that character in the upper left. So like this guy would start with the harpoon. This guy starts with this harpoon. And the two hands means it's a two-handed item. This icon means it's equipped, so it's actually not in either hand. And it says you may carry up to 3 additional gear cards. Normally you can only carry 3. So it's kind of like a pirate backpack, which could come in handy. Oh, this thing looks cool. Hand cannon. Kind of reminds me of an Evil Dead chainsaw, but a cannon version. It is two-handed. Well, I guess never mind. I guess you're just holding it with 2 hands. It's not actually your arm. And it says, requires 3 strength. So you have to be strong, first of all, to even use this. If the attack is successful, it inflicts 1 damage to all miniatures adjacent to the target. So this has some splash damage. Just in case you're wondering, this is the range. So it's got a range of 4, and then the number above that is the number of damage each hit does. So this thing can really do a good pounding. But also, again, again, I mentioned this game's thematic. This symbol means it's a reloadable weapon. So after you shoot it, you don't just get to shoot it again. You have to spend an action to reload it, which again, I think is very thematic. Oh gosh, I have to show this one. So this is a Cobra. Again, it's not actually in either hand. It's just equipped to you, designated by that symbol, but it says deplete this card, which I assume just means discard. Deplete this card to inflict 1 damage to an enemy of your choice if it fails an agility 5 check. So what's cool is like it's very thematic here. First of all, you just are tossing a Cobra at an enemy, but then the enemy does have a chance to escape the Cobra if they are able to succeed on an agility roll. One thing I'll immediately say is this really worth paying 30 gold to have a Cobra on you. I don't know, but that's what I meant about this game being very RPG inspired, is that it tells a good story, right? Can you imagine? And maybe it is the life-saving attack of the game when you have an enemy with 1 damage left and you throw the Cobra at them and save the day. So 2 more stacks of cards here. We're almost done. I mean, this game has a lot of content. And I never complain about having too much content in a board game. It obviously correlates directly to replayability value. Hopefully you're picking up on that too as I go through all this stuff, because you can imagine all the different characters with all those different skills, with all this different type of gear and those spells. There's just a lot of different things to experience. So these again are those port phase cards depending on the location. So for example, if you go to the port where normally you go to the port to, I don't know what you normally do at the port in it. But anyway, here it's kind of like a mission because of, let me read it first. Because of the constant attacks on the island, the formerly magnificent fort that La Rochelle is in shambles. After conquering it for the French, the Brotherhood is not about to leave it in that state. A foreman offers job to anyone willing to put in some hard work for the common good. If you accept some 6 time and make a 4 strength roll. If you have the tireless skill, you only need 1 check. Okay, 2 check. So you have to get 2 successes on this strength 4 check. And it's just a d6 you're trying, and in this game you have to roll greater. So you're rolling whatever your strength is, you're rolling that many dice, and you would need a 5 or 6 as for a success, and this is saying you need 2 successes. So it's not an easy task by any means. The job is really tough, but the pay is worth it. Gain 30 money and 2 fame at the end, and if you fail at the end of the day, you are in pain and extremely exhausted. You still gain 25 gold, so that's nice. Suffer 1 damage and lose one of those action token things that I was telling you about. So little things like that will come up. Ooh, what's the lips is called the manor. Yeah, so it's just another type of skill check, and just keeps the game thematic. Helps you tell a story. Like you can, if you're into RPGs, you can hopefully clearly understand how this game can really turn into a really good storytelling game. And what's great is that you don't need a GM to play this, right? Like it's a fully cooperative game that has all the readings included in the components. So and then this was the final stack of cards, but I can tell right away it's just more of those port location event cards. So moving on to we can show what we have left in the box. So I did all these cards, I did all the tiles. That's what we were just looking at. Now we just have this part of the box left. So let's look at the coins in the game. Now I'm actually impressed that they give you legitimate plastic coins. They're not metal, but they are plastic and they are detailed. So these represent the different denominations of money, which is gold, silver, and bronze. Bronze is 1 value, silver is 5, gold is 10. So you have those representing currency in the game. But then you also have these gems. And the the color does not matter. Each gem is valued at 20 currency. And I don't know, again, this game's just trying to be fun. So you have these like randomly colored gems, and they're plastic. But they just represent money. And oh, these are all the there's a lot of dials again for tracking things in the game. So these are those plastic knobbies for the dials. And then you have the 6-sided dice. Not immediately sure if color really matters in this game. Maybe when you're doing, I guess if you're doing a what's the word? A contested challenge or something where you're both rolling against you and an enemy are both rolling against one of your traits. Anyway, so that's probably why there's 2 color sets. But just regular 6-sided dice. Nothing too special. But there you have it. That's all the components of the core game here of Skull Tales Full Sail 2nd edition. And hopefully you find that helpful. Obviously, let me know in comments if you have any questions about anything I showed that I didn't really go into detail on. I definitely tried to limit. I still felt I talked a lot, maybe too much. But I still felt I limited the amount of information I was sharing in this, just because, again, I wanted to show off the game to you first and foremost. I definitely hope to start a campaign of this game, a solo campaign soon. And with that said, definitely check out Skull Tales Full Sail online for more information, other videos that already exist. But I definitely hope to make more content myself for this game. Since this game was published overseas, I believe Eclipse is a Spanish company. There's not necessarily a lot of English speaking content available, so that's definitely why I, of course, again, wanted to help bring attention to this game as a native English speaker, because I think there's a lot of gamers here in the US that would be very interested in learning more and playing Skull Tales, again, due to the theme, because a lot of people, I think, like me, are really into pirate-themed games. All right, so with that said, I think I've done enough talking, so I'll let you guys go. Thanks for all those that have joined this and watched live, but also for anyone watching the recording of this on our Talking Cardboard YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe to Talking Cardboard if you want to be aware of when we go live in the future, and like I said, specifically if you're interested in more content about Skull Tales. But yeah, thanks so much for your attention, and hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks, guys.